Hello and welcome to the folding tutorial for Apex, which as you can see is just a gorgeous paper airplane with these really dynamic fins and a cool change of wing angles, as well as just a very tidy structure to it that is extremely aerodynamic, which means that this plane actually flies very quickly and quite far with a good throw. Now I will warn you, it is rather hard to fold, but if you're ready to give it a try, let me show you this plane in flight, and then I'll teach you how to fold it. Apex is actually folded from a rather strange rectangle. This here is 5.5 by 17 inches, and there are three ways you could arrive at this shape pretty easily. One would just be to start with a really large sheet of paper, measure it out, and cut. But there are two ways even easier than that. One would be to start with a US tabloid sheet, which is 11 by 17, fold it in half and tear or cut along that line, and you'll end up with this rectangle. But I'm going to assume you probably don't have a tabloid sheet. And the other way you can do it is start with a US 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of paper, and you can fold it in half, tear along this line, cut along this line, and then stack the two halves together and tape them like this. And this is an origami model, but you can begin with this taped version if you like, because we're going to even be folding right along this line, and the tape's not going to be visible in the finished model. So for the tutorial, I'm going to work from this, but use whatever you need. And of course, the first step actually is to fold like so. So if you're using a sheet that doesn't already have a seam there, you'll want to do that, and then we'll open up. And now I'm going to fold this edge here to this edge here. Accuracy is always important, so try to line up your corners perfectly here. And I'll go ahead and unfold that. And now I'm going to rotate it into this orientation, and I want to fold this top edge here to land on this left edge, but instead of actually creasing all the way across, I'm going to just make some pinch creases. So as I line that up, I'm just going to pinch right on the center crease, and I'm going to pinch over on this opposite edge over here, and these are going to be two reference points that we use. Now I'm going to fold this top edge to that first reference point that's at the center crease. And I'll flip the paper over, and I want to unfold that and now pull this crease here all the way down so that it lands on this reference point. And I want to make sure I keep my center crease on the top layer lined up with the center crease on the bottom layer. And I'll unfold that. And now I actually want to pull this crease here to land on that crease we just made. I'll flip that over really quickly and just reinforce this crease on this side. And now you'll see we can fold this whole section down so that this edge here is landing on this reference crease we have. And I'm actually going to reverse that crease and fold it this way. And now we have this position where I'm going to fold this edge here to land on this edge, and my crease should go right through that corner. Try to keep your layers aligned as best you can. The layer inside will kind of want to push out and exit its current alignment. Try to control your layers if you can, and I'll do the same thing here on this other side now. and your plane should look like this. We're now going to unfold all of this, and you can see we have this interesting crease pattern, and I'm going to actually grab a larger sheet of paper and we'll zoom in and work with a larger scale so you can really see what I'm trying to do here. So examine this crease pattern and see that I have the same crease pattern on this larger square, and you work on your sheet of paper, I'll work on this one just so you can see really well what I'm doing. Now some of these creases are pointed in the correct direction. This is a mountain crease, for example. That's right, but we're going to have to reverse some creases as well. So I'm going to start by kind of pushing on this point here from behind and reverse the outer section of this horizontal crease. See, that's a valley, now this is a mountain. And then I can push on this crease. I'm reversing this portion of this crease and this crease as well, like so. And you can see this side is now ready to collapse. I'm not actually going to collapse it yet. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm pushing from behind on that point right there. And then I'm going to reverse this crease and this portion of that crease. And now you can see I actually can collapse the paper like so. And for you, you'll still have a long piece of paper extending down on this bottom edge, but you should have something like this on your top edge. And I'm going to fold this fin, trying to control the layers here to go in the opposite direction, kind of at its natural breaking point. And I want to make sure I'm landing this point right here along this edge here. I'll do the same thing on this side. And the details are going to get really small as we work in this section, and that's why I'm working with this large sheet, so hopefully my hands will stay out of the way. This is a little bit tricky here, this next step, but basically you can see we have this crease on this layer, and that's going to actually become our back edge rather than this layer. And so I'm basically just pushing and inviting the paper to fold on that crease, and it's not going to lie perfectly flat right now. So as I get it to fold, I'm going to push my fins sideways so that I can lay the paper on the other side and work into these corners to start to get the paper to lie flat. And you'll see now my fins are hanging off the back edge of the plane, but these sections aren't lying flat. Now, in order to get them to lie flat, we're going to have to do some kind of tricky folding. The first thing is I want to kind of release some of the tension on this and flatten this edge out so that this is pulling right to that corner. And I'm going to basically grab these two layers and fold them over together, and I want to land this point right here. So I'm pulling both of those layers, and when I have that point right there, now I can work with these layers. That's just introducing one crease. I basically want to work from that point and make a crease that's going from right here to that corner. And so I'm going to pull this layer out of the way a little bit and just work on this top layer. And you can see I'm just trying to guide it right into that corner. And it's hard to do that without getting your crease to fold, or to curve at all rather, especially when you're working at a smaller scale than this. And then I can kind of use that and pull this tight here. You can see I'm going straight to that point and flatten this kind of just the way it wants to flatten. And you'll see this crease right here that was that corner crease gets pulled in slightly, and we flatten it into this shape. So I'll do the same thing over here. I'm again just kind of flattening that, pulling that point to here, and then working on this layer. And you'll see that that little crease again gets pulled in, but I want to make sure that my edge lands on that point. And then this edge, I'm making it go straight to that corner. I know this is some complicated folding without the easiest references, but once you get that kind of worked out, you can also just flatten this like so. and your plane should look like this. Now I'm going to continue working on this fin over here, and I'm going to open the paper up kind of into this orientation. And you can see we have this crease that goes from here all the way into that corner, and this part's a valley fold, which is great, but this part's a mountain fold, and we want to reverse that along the length of it. And with the paper, we're really focusing on this point right here, with now this wanting to be a valley crease along its length. We're going to collapse back into that shape we had. And it's kind of tricky, but it'll look like that when you get it. And now this layer here should go on the inside of your fin like mine is now. I'll do the same thing on the other side, so hopefully you can get another look at that. So I'm just reversing this portion of that crease. And now I can begin to collapse that back in like so. And it should lay down just like that. So feel free to rewind if you need to see that again. It's hard to explain exactly what's happening, but hopefully you can see it on camera. Now we're going to do a few more small detail things. I'm going to fold from this point here through just past the tip of this here onto the edge. So basically I'm just kind of pulling that layer as far as it will go. And I can open that up and tuck that layer in to this pocket here. I'll do the same thing on this side. And now I'm going to fold over this back edge right here. I'm taking these layers and just pulling them up as tightly as I can over that layer. And I can open my fin up and tuck that in behind. Do the same thing over here. And now when I flip this over, you can see our fins have what will be their final shape, where they kind of hang off the back edge of the plane, and they even slant backwards like so. And I really think they look nice. And with that, we're ready to move on to the next step. So I'm going to zoom back out again by grabbing a smaller sheet of paper. And this is the size you will be working with. So I'm going to rotate the paper into this orientation and now go ahead and fold this down like so. And you can see I'm basically pushing it until it hits these fins, and then I'm just going even a millimeter farther maybe. But if you go until it hits the fins, that will work fine for you. And I'm folding like so. And now I can flip the paper over, push my fins to the side, of course, so they lie flat. And now I'm going to fold down on this existing crease here, like so. And now I'm going to fold from this point here, where this layer is intersecting the edge, up to this point here at the center crease. I'll unfold that and do the same thing on the other side, from this point here to the top point at our center crease. And now I will unfold back into this position, and I'm going to fold this edge here to land on this edge here, or to land it on that crease rather, the diagonal crease we were just making in the previous step. I'll unfold that, and I'll do the same thing on this side. Okay. With it in this position, I'm going to fold from this point here in the angle bisector of this crease and this crease here. And the way you can see that you're doing that is, again, pulling from that point. I'm just going to land this crease here along this inner diagonal crease that we have. This crease right here is what I'm landing it on. So with the paper kind of starting from that point, the intersection of all these lines, I'm landing this crease on that other crease, and I'll crease out from there. Unfold that, and I'll do the same thing on the other side. You can see where that crease is. It's bisecting this crease and that crease. Okay, and now I'm going to fold in on both of those at the same time. And I'm pushing the paper all the way in and actually wanting it to fold still on this crease and this crease here. So I'll reinforce those like so. As I bring that in, you'll see that it will kind of take shape into something like this as you continue to push these sides in, and you'll work to flatten it. And basically what you're trying to do is you want to land this center crease on this center crease here, and the layers inside will not actually push all the way to the middle. They'll be a little bit short of pushing all the way into the middle of the plane, and that is totally fine. And your plane should look like this. Now we have a few more kind of tricky steps. I'm basically going to open up this one side and pull in on that layer and collapse it back into this position. So if you can see what I've done, I'm pulling this layer in while leaving this layer out, and then still collapsing it into that position so that this layer looks like this and is going all the way up into the plane on that side. And basically you can see, if I open up that side, we have this crease that's running up this full layer here on the bottom layer, but it's not established yet on this top layer. So I'm basically just opening this up and folding along that existing crease to cut that layer in half like so. And hopefully you can see into the plane right now what I've done. And I'm going to actually unfold that, open that whole side back up. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, pulling this in, collapsing it into this shape like so, but I want that side open, and I will grab these layers together, and I'm just folding along that existing crease and kind of establishing it on the other layers that don't yet have it. And now I can fold it so it's in this position here, and now I can collapse that other side back in like so and fold on those creases we made. Really, you're going to have to push way into the pocket to get the layers to go all the way up into the nose like so, and your plane should look like this. Now we have a little bit of work on the nose of the plane, or this front section, and you can see we have these creases that start here and kind of slope down just slightly. Basically, I'm going to be creating a crease that goes from here to here, from this intersection to that intersection, and I'm pulling up on this pocket to do so, and I want to make sure I'm landing my center crease on the center crease. And you'll see it's pulling these layers as I do that, so we're actually going to be making a few creases in this step. I'm just making sure that these pockets open all the way from this point here to that point. And I'll flatten these like so. And you can see your plane should look like this. I'm now going to unfold that, and basically I want to reverse this whole section so it goes inside the pocket. So I'm reversing along this crease. It helps to really focus on the corners as you reverse those creases as well. And tuck them in. And you can see I've pushed all those layers under. And you can flatten your plane out like so. We are almost done at this point. Now I'm just going to fold in on this side. You can see we have that existing edge like so. And you can see we've even got an existing crease there where I can just tuck this layer in behind the other layers. And I'll do the same thing on this side, just folding in and folding behind. And this is what locks the plane completely together in a really tight manner. And we are just about there. You can see we've got the makings of apex at this point. I'm going to go ahead and fold. There's kind of this general breaking line along the fin. I want to fold this line, perpendicular to the back edge. So as I pull this down at that breaking point of the fin, I also want to make sure I'm landing this portion of my crease here on this side along that crease there, and that will make sure that I'm running perpendicular to the back edge of my plane. So you can see there, that crease is landing on this crease. And try to get your crease to go straight all the way up your plane. I'll do the same thing on the other side. You have to work on this front edge because it's a bit thicker. And I like to kind of find, you'll see there's a transition between thicker layers and thinner layers here. And because of that, it can sometimes wrinkle. I like to kind of find that edge and just gently run my fingernail along it. And that takes some of the slack out of the paper by making it fold over that edge. And it's just a way of reducing the wrinkling. And I accidentally added an extra score with my thumbnail, but hopefully you can make it look nice and clean for yourself. And I'll do the same thing on this side, just kind of gently searching for those layers and running my fingernail right along it to take some of that paper and therefore some of the wrinkles out. So now all that's left to do is basically kind of gently fold the plane in half like so. And then set our wing angles. So now I'm putting my fins vertical, and something very similar to this in terms of the dihedral in the center and anhedral on the outer edges is going to work great for you. I tend to flatten it out just a little bit more. Basically what you'll find is that it will generate more and more lift the shallower these angles are, which may mean that it's going to actually nose up too much, so you can pinch these together and change the angles if it doesn't. Now, there is just one last step, and that is to add the elevators on the outside edges. So I set my wing, or my fin rather, in this position and pull. Basically, I'm creating this crease right along this back edge here. And I'm only creasing to the bottom edge of the fin. I'm not creasing on the fin itself. So that when I put it down like this, there shouldn't be a crease running into the fin, but you can kind of pull that up and make an elevator as big as you need, or as high as you need rather, to adjust the performance of your plane. And I'll do the same thing on this side. So basically, the trick is you pull these elevators up and add up elevator if you find that your plane is nosing down, not gliding as nicely as you want. And if it's trying to do a loop too much, if it's stalling, then you reduce the bend upwards on those elevators. And with that, you have a finished apex. You can throw this in two ways. One would be to basically just hold this like a taco and throw it, and when you release it, you can see it kind of springs back into that shape, and you can throw it just like a normal plane. The other way is to just grab it by one of the wings and kind of throw it side-armed. And either one of those ways can work great for you, so feel free to test both of those. And with that, good luck flying your plane.